Hey everyone, in today's video, we're going to kick off a fun 4-part series where we are going to talk about conceptual and concrete ideas to help students really develop their number sense. Now, last summer I did a 4-part series with some number sense routines. Here are those 4 videos if you want to check them out. They're still very relevant and great routines to implement in your classroom next year. The first one I shared was about circle counting. The next one was quick images. I have a whole video for fill the grid, and then a number sense activity called picture it. All 4 of those routines are great ones to get started in your classroom, but in this series we're talking about number sense still because, again, I'm a K-2 teacher, you guys are K-2 teachers, and number sense is really those building blocks of all things mathematical, right? And I want to focus on both some conceptual understanding as well as some concrete activities, some hands-on real activities that you can take and use in your classroom for different number sense skills. So each week for the next 4 weeks, we will pick one number sense topic, and I will share some ideas to help your students develop their conceptual knowledge, and then I'll also share some concrete activities that you can use with your students. To give you a quick rundown of what's ahead, today we are going to focus on comparing numbers. Next week we will talk about patterns on a 100 chart, so some number sense knowledge with some larger numbers. The week after that we're going to talk about place values, specifically tens and ones, although for your 2nd grade teachers we will talk a little bit about that hundreds place, but we'll focus a lot on tens and ones. And for that last week we're going to focus on computation, very beginning computation with addition and subtraction. So I really hope you enjoy this series. If you're ready to dive into comparing numbers, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel. Let's get started. Alright, so before we dive into some specific ideas for comparing numbers, just quickly I want to talk about what conceptual knowledge in math really is. A conceptual approach to teaching math really focuses on having students understand and kind of think flexibly about mathematics instead of just memorizing like an algorithm. To give you like a K-2 example, we could teach subtraction a few different ways to our students. One way that would not be conceptual is to just teach students kind of what the minus sign looks like, what it is, so they can see that little dash there, and then we can tell them, hey, if you see a problem that has this minus sign, you're going to have the first number, here we have 5, minus 1 equals, and what you do is you take that first number and then you're going to take away however many are in this second number to get your answer. So we're kind of just teaching them, when you see this symbol, this is what you do. But we're not explaining what subtraction really is. A conceptual understanding of subtraction would be for students to actually understand what that means. We have 5 of something, we take it away to get some sort of answer. It goes a bit deeper than that, but that's kind of the basis of this conceptual understanding. So with each of the videos that I'm going to make, I'm going to talk about some ways that you can help your students conceptualize whatever skill we're working on. When students have a conceptual understanding of all sorts of different math skills, it really helps them as they get older into trickier mathematical computations because they can really think about things flexibly, they can solve things different ways, they can make connections between math skills, and so a lot of our math skills we learn really build off one another. So that being said, let's dive into comparing numbers. Comparing numbers is an important number sense skill for your students to master because it shows us that they really understand what the digits represent, right? So let me just share a quick example of a way that you should not teach how to compare numbers. For example, you don't want to show students a number line and tell them, oh, if a number is larger, it will be on this side of the number line, and if it's smaller, it'll be on this side. So just see where they are in the number line, and then you can compare them. Same with the 100 chart. You don't want to tell them, hey, just look at a 100 chart. If the number is smaller, it'll be at the top. If the number is larger, it'll be at the bottom. Both of those are true. Both of those are things that you do want students to notice, but neither of them help students understand the concept of which number is larger or smaller. That's like teaching them that minus sign, right? That's like, hey, this is what you do to solve it. But they don't understand what they're doing. So again, I'm not saying don't tell students that. I'm saying don't use that as the only way for students to understand which number is bigger and which number is smaller. I'm hoping by sharing a non-example each time, it'll really exemplify the conceptual understanding a little better. So if that works, if you like that idea, let me know down in the comments so I can do that for each of the videos. Okay, so what do we do to help students understand comparing numbers and comparing things? First, let's take away numbers completely, and let's have students compare objects using the words more and less. So I like to put the words more and less up on the board. This is especially for K1. I like to put them up on the board, and then I like to compare objects. Now you can do this many different ways. For example, I can show students both of these cups, and I can ask them, which of these cups is going to hold more water? Which one's going to hold more water? And then my students likely would say, this pink one, of course, and I'd ask them why. How do you know it's going to hold more water? Can we prove this in some way? And they'll probably give me some examples. They'll say it's larger, it's wider. We can prove this by actually pouring water in here and seeing if it will fit in the smaller cup. They'll give me many different examples to show why this one holds more. Now, using the same two tools here, I will also ask them to rephrase that and explain which one holds less water. And I want them to actually use the words more and less as they share their statement. So I want them to practice using those words. As they're explaining their reasoning, I do add words in there like greater. I'll say, oh, so this pink cup holds a greater amount of water. Would you say that's correct? And I kind of have them talk through this process. So they hear more, they hear greater. And then I ask them, would you say this cup holds more than this cup? Again, just hearing those phrases over and over. They're all kind of looking at me like, yeah, Miss Jones, I told you the pink one holds more. But by introducing these phrases, it sets them up for what's coming later. Still using objects, you can go ahead and have students start to compare groups of things. So you can do this on a board, or you can actually grab some physical objects. Just to show you, I would do both, by the way. I would do some examples on the board, and then I would also grab some things and put them in my hand. But for example, I would say, draw a line down the middle, draw like 3 triangles over here, and we will draw 1, 2, 3, 4 circles. So this can just be drawn on the board, or like I said, I would do both images, and I'd also have like 3 blue cubes, 4 red cubes. You could do it either way. And I would ask students, can you go ahead and compare these images using the words more or less? And again, more and less is on the board. I'm giving them those words again so they can practice using them in a mathematical way. And then students will go ahead and compare. They might say, there are more circles than triangles. I would ask other students, do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you know? How can you prove this? And listen to their reasoning. Well, they might say, okay, well, you know, there's 4 circles over here and there's 3 triangles over here, and 4 is more than 3. Okay, well, how do we really know that? And then I can show students that we can line them up. So again, if you're using the physical ones, I line them up and show that there's more of the other one. And here I would just draw them next to each other and show that there's one more circle than there are triangles. And I don't have to say one more than, we're just again focusing on more and less. And then if students offer the more word, I would then again, just like I did with the cups, have them also use the less word. So I'd ask another student in the class, ask for a volunteer, can you compare these images using the word less? Once students are comfortable and familiar with comparing groups of objects, that's when we introduce those numerals, those numbers, those digits. So that way students understand when they say a 4 and a 3, what they really mean. You can do that with the same image I just shared here. So I would even say, yesterday we compared these 2 groups of objects, and we said that there were more circles than there were triangles, and that there were less triangles than there were circles. Now let's put numbers to that so we can see. We would count them up, and we would write 4, and we would write 3. And then I would ask them again, the same exact image, I would say, now can you use the words more and less, but instead of saying circles or triangles, can you use these numbers? Can you use the number words? And here I would of course be looking for students to say 4 is more than 3, and 3 is less than 4. So these ideas really help students understand what more and less really means, instead of again just showing them, hey, the number's larger if it's on this side of a number line and it's smaller if it's on this side. And when you think about bringing it further, what students were doing at the beginning here is they were really comparing volumes, which isn't something they're going to think about until way later, but building this number sense knowledge only helps them understand it more when the concept comes. Once students are comfortable comparing numbers accurately using the words more and less, some easy warm-ups you can do would include putting up images like this. Now here you can see an image for kindergarten, for first grade, and for second grade. And you would simply put up 3 to 4 different numbers, and you would ask students, can you compare these numbers using the words more or less? Just like we did earlier, but now they're looking at a group of numbers here instead of just 2, and they can choose which ones they want to use using those words more or less. You can see here by these images that you could totally tailor this to your students. So in kindergarten, I really have numbers 1 through 5 right now. First grade, I would definitely include numbers 1 through 20. And in second grade, we have a bunch of 3-digit numbers. And of course, in small groups, you can tailor this even more. As I hope you noticed earlier, you don't want to just end it when students go ahead and share this is more than this or this is less than this. You want to ask students if they agree, if they can restate it, if they can say it in another way. And when you get to those higher numbers there, I'm looking for my second and first grade students to hopefully give me some place value knowledge to defend their answers. So if they are comparing 3-digit numbers, I want them to be able to explain to me that, they know this number is larger than this one because while they both have the same amount of hundreds, this one has more tens, for example. One last quick way to help students conceptualize this idea of comparing numbers is to use story problems. When we use story problems, it helps take mathematical ideas and make them real. For a quick example, you could ask the class, okay, I have a question for you. Would you like me to bring in 10 brownies for each student or 1 brownie for each student? Why? Now you'll likely get a lot of different answers. Some of your students are going to say, oh, I want 10 brownies. 10 is way more than just 1. But then other students might say, well, 10 brownies is way too many. I'll get a tummy ache, so I don't want 10 brownies. I'll just do the 1 brownie. I'll take the lesser amount, right? That was just a silly example off the top of my head, but by taking these story problems, it helps them make a mental image and actually, conceptualize what these numbers really mean. Instead of just 10 or 1, well, 10 what? 1 what? What am I comparing here? Now that you have some ideas to help your students conceptualize this skill, let me share some concrete ideas that will help your students practice. All right, as for some concrete ways to have students practice comparing numbers, there's many different ways you can do this. First and foremost, you'll want to have some sort of manipulative. So you can use little bears, you can use cubes. As your students get older, you'll want to use some base 10 blocks so they can make larger numbers. But this is going to help them really see and visualize the numbers that they are comparing. So for a quick one, I went ahead and I have this deck of cards here. It's Avengers, yes, it's awesome. My sister got it for me. But what I did is I simply took out all of the face cards. And for this, I would have them do it with a partner. I would have them each flip a card. So I'll flip 1, 10, and then my partner flipped 2. And then I would have them go ahead and make each number. So they would need to actually show using whatever manipulative they have. 2, 3, 4. Here's 10, and here's 2. And then they would have to say whose is larger. It's basically a game of war, except we're not going to play war just yet because I want them to build it, and they'll say, oh, 10 is more than 2. And on the board, you'll have more or the word greater than. You'll have whatever sentence stem you want them using for this activity. And as you walk around, you want to make sure students are saying it. So the student who has the larger number will say 10 is greater than 2. But then also the student who has the smaller number, you want to hear them say 2 is less than 10. And then they flip again. I flip a 3, partner flips an 8. I'll have to show it. So I tell my students whenever I walk around, I should be able to see the number. I should be able to see it, and then I should be able to ask them, compare these numbers using your number first. Go ahead. And this student will say 8 is more than 3 or greater than 3. And this student will say 3 is less than 8. So very simple, just grab a deck of cards and some manipulatives and have them practice using those phrases. So that first one just needs a deck of cards and some manipulatives. I do also have a ton of activities for all sorts of number sense skills and really all math skills in my SJT Math Club. So I wanted to show you a few of these. This first one is called Mix, Order, and Make. And within it, it's a club for K through 2 teachers. So there are some differentiated cards for kindergarten, one's for first grade, and one's for second grade. So here is just an example of the kindergarten cards, and these are numbers 1 through 20, and I put them specifically so you could just start with 1 through 10 if you wanted to. So students would first mix up the cards. They would flip 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then they would have to order them first based on what they think about these numbers. So 1, 6, and 8. And then to kind of prove their thinking, this is where they make it down here. So using cubes or using those bears, whatever they want, here's 1. Here is where they will make 6. And then over on the other side is where they will make 8. So they'll mix, they'll order them, and they'll make it. And this is where, again, they check 1 is less than 6, which is less than 8. So here they're ordering numbers, but in order to order numbers, of course, they need to compare them to know what order they should go in. 1, 6, and 8. Then they will clear this board. They'll put it over here. They'll mix and flip again, and then repeat this process. And then when all the cards are done, they'll shuffle them back up and continue to do this process over and over. Now here is a picture of the first grade version. You can see there are some larger numbers. For first grade, we have them practice within 100. And then let me show you the second grade version just so you can see what that's like. So kindergarten, first, and second grade, it's the same exact concept. And there are more numbers. I only printed out one page. There's a bunch of them. So here with the second grade version, I recommend that you laminate the board, and I have that written in the club too, because when they actually make their numbers, they're going to be larger. These are within 1,000. So they mixed up the numbers. They'll flip 3, 178, 289, 450. They'll order them first based on what they think they know, and then they will make them down here. Now we'll pretend this is, dry erase marker. I want to see their 100. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 178. And then over here, I won't do it all, but they'll essentially draw them all out, drawing on their base 10 knowledge. This helps me have students compare how many hundreds are in the numbers, how many tens are in the numbers, and how many ones there are. Another comparing game in the SJT Math Club is called Collect and Compare, and this is a 2-player game. So player 1 will put their game piece over here, player 2 will put their game piece over here. Students will go ahead and take turns rolling the dice, moving that many spaces, 1, 2, and collecting however many they land on. So here we'll collect 2. Again, switch it up with some fun manipulatives and they'll have a ball. Player 2 moves 5, and they will collect 2 as well. Students will basically continue rolling and collecting however many they need until they get to the very end. And once once player 1 makes it all the way through the board and lands here, and player 2 makes it here, they will count up how many they have in each group. So let's pretend player 1 ended up getting 31, and player 2 ended up getting 27. They will determine the winner by whoever total is larger, which in this case would be player 1. Now, if those numbers get too high, there's another way you can play this. For kindergarten, for example, what I would have them do, let me move these over, is I would have them each roll the dice and move that many spaces. 1, 2, 3. I landed on 3. And player 2 landed on 3. 1, 2, 3. They landed on 4. Now, in order to decide who would actually keep that amount, it has to be whoever has the larger amount. So over here, player 1 has 4. Player 2 has 4, so player 1 will put theirs back. So this way the numbers aren't as high when they get to the end. So they'll be comparing each time they roll. And if it's a tie, they both get to keep it. Another fun game we have in the club is called Bug Collector and Compare. This is a simple one. It's a 2-player game, so students will write their name. Let's pretend I'm playing against my brother. So I will go ahead and spin. I land on 9. I will take out 9 little bugs, we pretend. If you actually have bug, like erasers or bug themed something, that can help add to it, but any manipulative will do. So again, making the number, and then player 2 will go. They get 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We write down the numbers, 9, 6. Who has the larger number? That's me, so I circle it. As we go back and forth throughout the entire time, we will see at the end whoever had the most higher numbers. So whoever has the most circled numbers, collected the most bugs, is the winner. I'm hoping you'll notice a theme with these games, and that is that students not only have to compare the digits, but they have to compare the actual amount by making them. And just to show you one more example, this is a 2nd grade example that is also in the SJT Math Club. Again, all of these are just under the number sense portion. I have games and activities for addition, subtraction, geometry, for everything. So just to show you, I'm not going to go through each one, but essentially this is 3-digit spin-off, since that bug collector one was really for kindergarten and 1st. Here, each student would take their turn spinning how many hundreds, how many tens, and how many ones they need for their number. And then, so this would be student 1, this would be student 2, or this is an independent game, up to you. And then they would need to compare the 2 numbers, and this is where they would actually introduce those symbols as well. So they would write the symbol too, to compare. So I just wanted to show you that we have plenty of 2nd grade games as well. So there you have some teacher ideas and some student activities to really help your students understand what it means to compare numbers. This is just part 1 of my 4-part series, and I hope you will join me next week, where we are going to talk about patterns on a hundreds chart or 120 chart, whatever you use, and really get students to think about some larger numbers as well. If you enjoyed these ideas and activities and they helped you think a little bit differently about the way you might teach math, I would love to know, and if you have other ways that you teach this skill, let me know down in the comments. I love to read your comments, I love to learn from you, I like learning from each other, and you know, it's just fun. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up so I know. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and click that bell. That way you're notified of every new video. See you in the next one. Bye.